Hi there, welcome to week three of the Inside Track with Scottish Sun. I've got Jim Delahunt here again with me. We're going to look through Newbury, we've got the Coral Gold Cup, Newcastle, we've got the fighting fifth, and also over at Fairyhouse. How are you, Jim? And I think first of all, we should probably reflect on the horrors of last week. We both sat, made our case for a hoist and yaw. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Was it the ground, the ride, a combination of both? What's your take on it?
A combination of all 10, I think. Looking back on that race, I think I woke up on Saturday morning. I heard the news from Haydock about the ground getting softer and softer, and I have to say, I really thought there was a problem in store for a Hoyce and Yor. He's not great on that kind of ground. It's always been the case. He's always been better on spring ground, March and April. We shouldn't really make it as an excuse because he actually ran, but he certainly wasn't suited by it. He didn't perform anywhere near his rating. He was held up out at the back. Whether that was the right thing to do or not, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe they'll ditch those tactics, Robert, now that they've tried them a couple of times. And I suppose they thought they worked at Aintree, but they certainly didn't work last time at Haydock. Um, Lucinda seems to be saying that it's still the Gold Cup and then Aintree. To be honest, where else would you go? I mean, would you have any suggestions other than those being targets in the spring?
The only other thing you could think of maybe is go to Dublin for the Irish Gold Cup because you tend to get good, faster ground there at that time of year. Leopardstown seems to be a track that drains pretty well. That's the only one. I mean, the Denman chase at Newbury, the
Yeah.
Cotswold chase are the two obvious targets here. But I mean, it really is a recovery mission now. I just wonder if they felt a little bit boxed in with the tactics. After the Furore at Aintree, they felt, right, we really need to persevere with this. Just didn't suit them. I don't think you'll see them riding like that again.
Yeah, I think you're most probably right on that, Robert. I think those tactics will be discarded. I think he'll be back to his old self when it comes to wherever he appears next. I've got a hunch like you, he might go Denman. Leopardstown is an option, but Denman Chase, I think, is probably the way to go. Then it'll be the Gold Cup. Why not? Why not run in the Gold Cup? He's still a very highly rated steeplechaser. There aren't too many of them around, if we're being perfectly honest. So I would think he will go for the Gold Cup. He'll try and do what he did last time before he fell, and then it'll be on to Aintree and hopefully a bit of glory there. But I think in terms of last week, we were overly optimistic and it didn't work out. We've got to be honest.
Talking about Gold Cups, I mean, we saw some superstars on Sunday in the John Durkin. You put up fast or slow. Is he the one that would maybe be slightly disappointed coming out of the race?
I was certainly disappointed with his performance. Certainly coming round the bend, I thought he was going to be in with a chance. But when push came to shove, Derek O'Connor really was shoving. And I think there'll be more to come from that horse. So I'm certainly not writing him off for the Gold Cup. But you have to be impressed with the two novices that finished first and second in the JP McManus colours. I mean, I've always been a fan of Spillane's Tower, always been a fan of that horse, but I didn't think he was up to putting up a performance like that in a race like that so early in his career. But he has done, and he's right in the Gold Cup mix, as is Factor File. I think Factor File is now trading his favourite for the Gold Cup. Galloping Deschamps, I think, was available at 9-2 for a while, Robert, but that's gone. He's back down to 7-2. And you'd have to say that Gallopin Deschamps ran an absolute blinder in third place. And when it comes to Cheltenham in March, he'll be on his A game, barring injury, and he's going to be right to the forefront again, isn't he?
Yeah, you would think so. And I thought fast or slow getting pushed out to 14-1 was quite maybe an overreaction as well. But back over three and a bit miles at a course that we know he likes.
Yeah, and but back at Cheltenham and hopefully with JJ Slevin back in the saddle. I mean,
Mhm.
Derek O'Connor is one crack amateur. There's no question about that. But JJ Slevin knows the horse inside out, and once he's back on board, I certainly wouldn't rule out fast or slow. And like you, I think those odds are very, very attractive. He won't be 14-1 if he turns up at Cheltenham in March.
You usually look at Newbury this weekend and think, is there maybe a Gold Cup horse lurking in the what used to be the Hennessy, it's now the Coral Gold Cup. Don't think we've got that this year. I mean,
We haven't.
does seem a
Yeah,
fairly
we haven't,
neutral
Robert.
yield, doesn't it?
It's a very ordinary handicap, isn't it? But it's still a high quality handicap. The top weight Sam Brown has done it in the past, but he's now 12. Midnight River, is he really one of the best of Dan Skelton's? Dan would probably talk him up, as would Harry. Senior Chief from Henry de Bromheads, is he any better than an ordinary handicapper? We're going to find out on Saturday. Obviously, I know that you like Broadway Boy. You're going to make the case for that Nigel Twiston Davis horse in just a second, but the one I like is Colonel Harry. I flagged him up in the Sunday Diary column in the Scottish Sun last week at 8-1. He's now trading 5-1, 11-2, although I suspect this handicap is so often you'll probably get 7-1 on Saturday morning. We'll see how that goes. But Colonel Harry, for me, trained by Jamie Snowden. Jamie won the race last year with That's All Right Gino. No trainer has won this race back-to-back since Nicky Henderson. Now that was a way back. When was that? 2012 and 2013. Barry Geraghty rode both of them, Bob Back and Triolo Delane. And before that, you have to go way back to Paul Nicholls. And it wasn't Paul Nicholls, the trainer, Robert. It was Paul Nicholls, the jockey, who rode it back to back 86 and 87, Broadheath and Play School. So it's a big ask for Jamie Snowden to win back to back Hennessy's. But the thing I like about this horse is he's very, very similar in profile to That's All Right Gino. He's a second season chaser. He's definitely on the improve. And for me, he's a horse that's going to improve for going a trip. He goes over 3.25 miles for the first time on Saturday. He's been campaigned at 2 and 2.5. I think he's been screaming out for a longer distance. He gets that this weekend. He gets in off a reasonable handicap mark. He's £6 off top weight in what we think is a very ordinary Hennessy for £250,000. I think Colonel Harry could come into his own at Newbury on Saturday. The Jamie Snowden horses are absolutely flying. If they're not winning, they're finishing second and third. Gavin Sheehan is riding out of his skin. He really has been since he rode Hewick to win the King George last year. And Colonel Harry's the one for me. But I know you like the Nigel Twiston-Davies horse, Broadway Boy.
Yeah, kind of similar lines to you. I like these second season chasers in this race. Also, I like the way the Broadway Boy, the way the race will be run. He'll go out in front. I was really impressed with his comeback at the Cheltenham a few weeks ago, where Senior Chief beat him in the end. But there's a £10 swing with him this weekend. I
Yeah.
think Sam Twiston-Davies will go out in front. He'll get him into rhythm. He'll get going. And I just think horses in this race, you've seen it before. Cloth Cap, Smad Place, Native River. You know, if you get a rhythm in this race, you're very hard to peg back when you come off the front. I think he's a horse that's up and coming. He's only 6, but he's got a lot of experience. And Sam Twiston-Davies is riding with a lot of confidence at the moment. I thought he was a very progressive horse at the start of last season, tailed off after Christmas, which a lot of Twiston-Davies horses do. I really liked his comeback run. I don't think he was as fit as they expected. I read quotes with Willie Twiston-Davies, who's turned out to be one of the sharpest operators
Yeah.
around. I like listening to him.
I read that.
Yeah, he said they were surprised how much a blow the horse took. So I think there'll be a bit of improvement there. That £10 swing that he's got with Senior Chief, I can see him reversing the places there. And I think if he gets out in front and just gets jumping, I think he'll be very hard to get past.
Yeah, it's going to be a good race to watch in the sense that it could be a lot closer than Hennessy's in the past. But just one final word on this Hennessy. You know what I mean? The Coral Gold Cup. We all call it the Hennessy. But just one final word on this. Everybody harks back to Denman, the glory days of Denman, which wasn't that long ago. But when Denman did that, went out and defied 12 stone, that was the first time any horse had done it for a very long time as well. So maybe it's not as regular an occurrence as we all seem to think it should be. And I'm afraid what the Coral Gold Cup is on Saturday is what it is. And I'm for Colonel Harry, you're for Broadway Boy, and fingers crossed one of them can get in the winners' enclosure.
Yeah, we've got some cracking races, a few really nice novice races as well. There's also the Sir Peter O'Sullivan Handicap Chase, which is always an emotional race for people in racing because of who he is. I believe you've got one in this you fancy.
Yeah, I fancy a horse that hasn't run for a long, long time, Robert. 668 days. It really is a long time. It's a horse called Sizable Sam, trained by Jeremy Scott, who, as we all know, has had a little bit of a slow start to the season, but his horses are just starting to run well and come good. I thought he had one run well during the week there, which was back off a break as well. Sizable Sam, he really is well made because he is absolutely huge. And because of that, because he's such a big, big horse, I cannot see them running this horse half-cocked. I think he'll be fit enough to run and probably win first time out. It's not a great race. He's in off 10 stone 11. He's a 9-year-old now, but he has had a lot of time off the track. Very lightly raced. Lorcan Williams is going to be in the saddle. 128 isn't harsh at all. The last time we saw him, he was in winning form. That was a long time ago, but I think Jeremy will have him very, very fit for this comeback. And I think first time out, Sizable Sam is the time to get on this horse. So he's my selection in the 1240.
Just a general point on betting, Jim. See when you see horses that are coming off a long break like that, does your eye get attracted to them simply because if they've had a setback, a trainer doesn't want to send them back to the track when they're not fully fit and properly tuned up? Is that a punting angle you sometimes look at?
It is indeed, but I have to say I'm very big overall in racing, very big on visuals. And if it's a horse like this, although I will back this horse without seeing it, a horse like this, I'd love to see it in the paddock beforehand just to be absolutely satisfied that he's not carrying a huge tummy or whatever. As I said to you beforehand, because of the circumstances of this horse and because I've seen it before, it's such a big, strong horse. I just don't think they can take a chance of it being half fit, making a mistake and getting injured again. So I think it'll be absolutely fine. But you make a good point. I mean, getting horses first time back off a long break, if you're confident that the trainer will have them fit, then it is the time to bet.
Yeah. There's also a handicap hurdle. We both fancy one in this. Well, one each. I believe you fancy Issam, the 154.
Yeah, it's a handicap hurdle over 2.5 miles. Essam's trained by Tom Simmons, who doesn't train too far from the track, if I remember rightly. Jordan Naylor, who I think was one of Nigel Twiston Davis's jockeys, he's in the saddle on this one. Won 3 handicaps last year. Came out this year at Foss Lass over 2 miles. He's back up to 2.5 on Saturday. He was forced to lump sum level weights, and lump sum, of course, goes for the fighting fifth, which we're going to talk about shortly at Newcastle. I think that was a very, very good performance. I think Issam has a little bit in hand of the handicapper, especially going back up to 2.5 miles. But it is a very open looking race, so I wouldn't be going mad on it. But I do think he's going to be a value bet. But again, you're going to throw up one against me.
Well, it's also a form line through one that was supposed to be running the fighting fifth, Brentford Hope. But I've just
Yeah.
seen this morning that it's been pulled out, so that's a non-runner now. But the horse is Spring Note for Nicky Henderson. Really, really gutsy mare who loves Newbury. She's 3 out of 3 from at the track. She beat Brentford Hope. You just need to 2 or 3 attempts to get past her up that long straight in Newbury. Couldn't get past her. He dropped her back in trip to win at 2 miles. Now stepping back up to 2 mile 4. She's related to old Oscar Whiskey. You'll remember that horse, Jim.
Yeah, yeah.
So 2.5 miles won't be a problem. I just think course form, the line through Brentford Hope, I think it's 16 to 1. Fantastic bet each way.
Yeah, it certainly looks the value there. But I'll stick with this, Sam. Jordan Naylor in the saddle, and I notice you've got David Bass on board because, of course, Nico de Boinville is up at Newcastle for the fighting fifth.
Yeah. Well, we talked about Constitution Hill last week, and no sooner had this gone up on YouTube and on the Scottish Sun website, Constitution Hill was scratched for the race. I mean, what was your take on that? Nicky Henderson's been very, very open about it, hasn't it? I mean, he looked distraught in his video. It's no surprise, though, was it?
It wasn't a surprise, and I think we made it quite clear last week that there was every possibility that Constitution Hill could get injured again. And I think I mentioned that State Man could go on and now win everything. Of course, he was beaten first time out that weekend as well. But of course, Nicky has another good horse, Sergino, which is the horse that was in that gallop with him at Newbury. And that's the horse that Nico de Boinville now rides in the fighting fifth on Saturday at Newcastle. Grade 1 race, of course, over the 2 miles. Another race like the old Hennessy, the Coral Gold Cup, which has a tremendous history, although it was won by Not So Sleepy last year for Hughie Morrison, who you wouldn't say was a real top class animal. But Sergino, they think he's good enough to win this. He's a 4-year-old, unbeaten last year. They think it's good enough to win this, but I think there are horses which might give him a race. Although I'm not sure I'm going to have a bet, Robert. I think it's a look and learn for me. Colonel Mustard over from Ireland, trained by Lorna Fowler. Adam Wedge gets the mount on that one. Kihava, very good flat horse, improving flat horse. Can he carry that improvement back over hurdles? Well, we'll find out on Saturday. And I suppose you'd have to throw in the Willie Mullins horse there, Mystical Power, with Mark Walsh in the saddle. But it's a look and learn for me. What about you?
I think Mystical Power might win it. I really liked him last year, and I mean, I know Henderson, he's made a big thing. He did it with Bouverdaire, who went chasing and came back to win a champion hurdle. Sergino was supposed to go chasing. This is very much an afterthought. Has he been trained for this? I just think Mystical Power might be the one tomorrow. I notice you can actually get odds against on Sergino now. It's 5-4 Sergino, 6-4 Mystical Power. So the market's starting to align.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And before that, of course, we have a very classy novices hurdle, the French Furs novices hurdle, where Lucinda Russell, Lucy's evaluation.
Yep, this was second in the Northumberland Plate, and very, very. You were at here the day that it won its
Yeah,
novice hurdle. What was your take on that?
Very, very impressed. Very, very impressed. Now, it wasn't a great race. Let's be perfectly honest about that. Wasn't a great race, but he did what he had to do. Went out there, showed all his flat speed, nice hurdling technique. I think going up to 2 3/4 miles at Newcastle, real stiff track for a horse that has been second in that very classy stairs handicap. It's very quite unusual, Robert, because a lot of these flat horses, they come off the flat and you're thinking 2 miles is the trip for them. But this horse evaluation coming off the flat a bit later and going over hurdles, 2 mile 6, I think at Newcastle is going to suit him very well indeed. Derek Fox in the saddle. It'll be interesting to see what the opposition, how the opposition line up against this horse, because they know he's got the flat pace. Will they try to blunt it? It'll be interesting. Skyjack Hijack is still in the race at the moment, although he was a non-runner elsewhere earlier in the week. Maybe it was just to wait for this race. But evaluation for me, I'd be honest, I haven't checked the prices in any detail as yet, but I think hopefully he'll be a decent enough price that we can have a bet evaluation to keep his 100% record over hurdles in the French Furs.
And then later on in the card, we've got the rehearsal chase where Bow to Greatness is one that you like, but also a horse that was running the Scottish National last year after running up a rack of wins.
Yeah, Bow to Greatness, £4 up in the handicap for winning at Newbury last time. I tipped it up that day, so maybe strange I'm going against it this time. But Anglers Crag, I thought, was really impressive last season. Pulled up in the Scottish Grand National when the ground had gone against him. But he'll be fine over this 3 miles in the rehearsal chase at Newcastle. He was in the 3 3/4 mile chase earlier on the card. That's the 1:35. But Brian Ellison's pulled him out of that to go for this 3 mile. I think 3 miles first time out will be more than enough for him. Ellison's horses are in real form. They do win first time out. I don't think he would go for a big race at Newcastle half cocked, given his reputation around those parts. And Anglers Crag, I think for me, is going to be good enough under Craig Nicol. And I want to mention Craig because Craig Nicol is a jockey who is riding out of his skin at the moment. He really is. Every time I see him, he's in absolutely fantastic form, win or lose. And I think Craig could get more opportunities in the near future off the back of what he's been doing off the past couple of weeks. And I think he's on a real good one here in Anglers Crag in the rehearsal at Newcastle.
Well, you can't talk about jump racing these days without going across to Ireland, where the main event seemed to be at the weekend. We've got 2 days at Fairyhouse. Is there anything on that card that catches your eye? First of all, we'll look at the grade ones in a minute, but first of all, is there anything else on the card?
Yeah, the grade ones are both on Sunday, Robert, and it's a good card shaping up there. Obviously, Lossiemouth is coming back out, going to be taking on Tihapu in one of the big grade ones there. But Saturday's card I thought was interesting. One or two I'd like to mention here. The first in the ladies' handicap chase, which is for lady jockeys. It's over 2 miles, 5.5 furlongs. It's at 12:12 on Saturday, so one for the early birds. But St Denis's Well, trained by Ian Donoghue, ran really well at Cheltenham last time. I noticed the horse running really well a few times last season as well. I think he's a fairly straightforward ride, and I think that's good news because Cara Monaghan is riding this one, an apprentice and a conditional, claiming £7. I think she'll get a really good ride off St Denis's Well, and I think the horse is reasonably well handicapped even as things stand, and her £7 claim might just help as well. So she's in against some very, very experienced female pilots, but Cara claiming 7 on St Denis's Well, a horse in form, and I suspect that Ian Donoghue has marked this race out for this particular horse. Now, the other two I like. One is a horse that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, Robert, American Mike, which is trained by Gordon Elliott. Was very, very disappointing, I have to admit, in the Troy Town Chase. Never got going at all, but he runs here in another handicap over 2 miles and a furlongs. It's a listed race, so he's back down in trip. Carol Miller, very interesting and useful £5 claimer. He takes them out on American Mike. Gordon Elliott had 3 in this race. He's taken the other 2 out. He relies on American Mike here. And I think with Carol Miller's £5, that might just ease things enough for him to get back to winning form. And the other one I want to mention, this time ridden by another Gordon Elliott jockey, and that's Sam Ewing. He's going to be on board for Dermot Weld, a horse called Falcon 8. Now, this horse is very, very useful on the flat. I think he might even have won a Chester Cup at one stage. Falcon 8 back over hurdles for the first time in well over 2 years, maybe just under 2 years actually, now that I think about it, 23 months. He had a run on the flat just a few weeks ago, ran very, very well indeed. Back over hurdles, back on a mark which is ridiculously low in comparison to what he's run over in the past. I think Falcon 8 each way in the 3:05 at Fairyhouse on Saturday might just be one to be interested in.
Thanks very much, Jim. And you can read Jim's column in the Scottish Sun on a Thursday and a Sunday where he puts up plenty of winners, loads of great insight every week. Thanks very much. Good luck. Thanks,
Thanks,
Jim.
Robert.